Good evening, it being September 19th, 2018, November 19th, 2018. This is the Soil Board. Is there a motion to open the meeting?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
With that, be kind enough to introduce yourselves, starting with Wanda and work around this way.
Wanda Hema, clerical secretary.
Joseph Correa, the health agent here.
Kevin Gallagher, Fire Chief.
Brian Noble, Town Administrator.
Roger Cabral, Board of Selectmen.
Mark Centerizio, Soil Board, absent tonight, Merrill Lee from Conservation, and Bob from Board of Health.
Dan.
And Dan Menard from DPW. This meeting is also being audio and videotaped per Mass General Law. With that, this is our basic thing, is discussion of PJ Keating with conditions and fees, review matters presented, votes may be taken. Turn it over to you on that one, Joe.
Sure, yep. So at this point, the soil board's, we've got to finalize the 2018 permit for PJ Keating, which is this past current year. We haven't finalized that yet, so we have to send that to them, get paid. That was a $5,500 fee that we have to collect from them. Once you guys approve that, we can move on to the selectmen to get them their approval, which is how the soil permit works for 2018. That being said, we held back on that because of all the review that we were doing, which was the main reason why we kind of got to the end of the year without it, in case there was any issues or changes that the board was interested in making. At this point, for the most part, PJ Keating definitely paid their way for their peer reviews on everything that we had asked throughout the dust mitigation plan. The Board of Health issues through the dust mitigation plan, and we've also now moved ahead and through our consultant Woodard and Curran looked at some conditions for the 2019 soil board permit that you would issue to them. This is part of your package here. It's been vetted by our town council also. So it was created through Woodard and Curran and sent out to both Kevin Euchen at PJ Keating, and it was also sent to our town council to be looked at. They returned with a few typos. It was really not a problem. And so this is what my suggestion and the board's suggestion throughout this whole process would be in regards to the 2019 permit. Permit with conditions. These are the conditions that would be attached to it that basically describe all the regulations and bylaws that we can regulate. Plus it allows in that condition for us to actually enter into what we can into the quarry and do inspections.
Before you go any further, do we have to take a vote on the 2018, sending them a bill? So we have to make a motion on that and take that now, and then work into 2019?
Maybe we should do
Yeah.
that, 'cause that,
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yep.
Okay, simple as that. Is there a motion to send the billing for PJ Keating to the selectmen? We have to get the selectmen's endorsement before we send the bill to PJ Keating?
No,
No?
no, just so you would want to vote to approve the 2018 permit.
And fees?
Yeah, and also the fee associated with it. And then I will get that over to PJ Keating so I can collect the money from them and then move the process over to the select.
Good. Is there a motion?
motion,
Second.
All in favor?
discussion first, just for the benefit of,
Yep. People out in TV land?
people out, with tens of people watching at
Okay.
home. The 2018 permit's basically same as it ever was, so the year's over, it's a January to December permit, it's
Correct.
November 19th, We're just giving them what they've always had.
Yep.
For 2019, January to December 2019, in anticipation of their plan to restructure their facility, it's gonna be a more complex permit than it's been.
Correct.
So we're just approving a permit that's got basically good for another 45 days. We're not gonna fine them for the 11 and a half months they've been operating without a permit.
Yep.
Said in humor.
Well said.
Okay, so, just wanna clarify what we're doing, okay.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. With that, send that over to you. Now, round two, you can take care of 2019, which,
So 2019, we've worked really, again, not to repeat myself, we've worked hard with our consultant Woodard and Curran, with the town council, in the soil board, to come up with a set of conditions that would be attached to your 2019 permit, which will specifically outline the way that it will be inspected and regulated, and what our authority or your authority will be based on this. So we've done two things. We've also done that matrix of regulations that was earlier on, that showed every single solitary regulation from EPA right down to our local level, what goes on over there, what kind of rules govern that, and taking from that regulation is how the conditions were constructed. So as we move forward, the thought would be to, specifically add this into their new permit for 2019, to cover all our bases, and then as we move down the list of discussion topics, the next thing would be how to handle inspections, or what the intent would be there. I just have to come up
and
with
who
some.
and how much, et cetera, correct?
Yes, so I mean, from, if you want, I'll keep on going, because it really all goes together now. Considering that we have 2018 behind us, this is all what the board has to deal with moving forward. One of the things is take a look at their bond. I think that needs to be renewed. It seems very messy the way that we have it. I think there's some explanation that needs to go on there. I believe, I may be wrong, but I believe that Tilcon Capaldi still potentially owns the property, and PJ Keating leases it. I think my thought to the board is to really get into the meat and potatoes of that. The bond that I see there, I feel as though it's never been updated.
20 years old.
Yeah, and specifically
Is that the
called
one
out.
for 786,000?
Yes,
Okay.
called out, money-wise.
Do we know that would be enough to remediate it?
I think at the time that we took a vote on it back years and years and years ago,
Right.
that was for closure.
So, do we think that basically in the 20 years that it's been since we did that number is sufficient? Or
Again,
is that something we're gonna investigate
I
as
think
part
it
of the
would have to
process?
be investigated.
So we're gonna need to engage PJ Keating in a discussion of this permit?
I would think about the bond, for sure, to come up with
Could
a,
you just speak to the specifics of the bond? What is it designed
Fill it
to
in.
do?
in the event that PJ Keating up and leaves, and leaves the mess behind, we have the ability to take that sum of money and clean up.
Closure, in other
It would
words.
be closure or
Just the
clean up.
closure.
Yes.
It's not it's not in addition to an insurance policy. If anything were to go catastrophically wrong at the,
No.
It's if they leave the mess to us, to the town of Acushnet.
Yeah, we're not their property, we don't have to worry about the property and casualty limits, and our town insurance policies for injured on duty would cover a firefighter
Well,
who was injured.
so let's just play this out, not so much just PJ Keating, but any company. We have a bond for them closing and walking away from their facility, and it's for the town to clean up and then determine what to do.
This was done
It's an
When the soil
insurance
board
policy.
started, we had 15 or 20 pits open at that time.
Okay.
And each pit had to have a bond with a closure, so grade, grass and all that stuff and everything. And that's where we came up with that one.
So in the event that the company were not financially sound at the time of some kind of catastrophic event,
This isn't property and casualty. This is purely and only closure.
closure, okay,
Again, that's assuming that they walk away.
walk away,
And they do not.
And I got a
if
hole in the ground.
If they're still
that we gotta
there,
Fill.
understood.
Yeah.
Swimming pool,
With gel in it, yeah.
you know, maybe a shrubbery.
and so, I mean, what would it take? And it depends, unfortunately, the thing about, and that's why you'd want to speak with PJ Keating, how do they leave it when they leave? So that's always, you know, the insurance side of it, or the guess. I mean, if they have some sort of spill that happens in the bottom of the quarry, and then it's filling up with water because they just walked off site because they felt as though they couldn't make any money anymore. So, I mean, that's the horrible side of it. The other side of it is that they just run out of money, they pack their equipment and they leave, and everything's left in pristine condition. You still got a hole in the ground.
And secure it.
You know, and potentially some metal structures, superstructures out there that kids could be playing on that need to be taken away. So, how much is that worth?
It's worth more than $768,000.
That's just the bond.
That's the bond, that's what I'm talking about, in the 20 years that we,
I believe
I
this
think we
one
will
was
look at
what,
that.
November
2000?
13th, 2000, so we're talking
Yeah.
18 years now, 20 years.
And
What do you check, what do you want, couple mil?
Probably.
At least, yeah, oh,
I
yeah.
mean, a real question would be sitting down with Kevin Yukon and starting to talk about that. Because you know, the problem I see is an environmental spill cuts through even bankruptcy, and that's an EPA violation, that's a DEP, and they'll be involved in that if that's the problem, if it becomes a brownfield, if you will, so we want, the problem would literally be if they walked away, they were bankrupt and there was no environmental liability, they still have a hole. So filling that hole is gonna be the issue, and it's gonna take a long time, we put leaves in it, so.
That'd be a big swimming pool.
Yeah, so, that's the reason for the
Yeah.
bond, so,
Well, is there a motion, well, should we make a motion stating that we should sit down with whoever the heads
PJ
are
Keating, yeah.
and give this
Yeah.
to you as town administrator, or the selectmen, or the soil board, or?
I think it's gonna take a team approach, and
Oh,
Joe and Joe have been very helpful at being the lead with
Joe
that,
is the man.
so. I'll
And
work with,
Joe,
I'll work with
be
Joe, we'll get
involved.
yeah,
I'd
we'll
like
get
to
an
be involved as well.
appointment,
I'd like to be involved.
with the management of PJ,
Yep.
and let's get the conversation open. I think we also need the next part, which is allied to it, is gonna be the inspection, terms of
Mhm.
inspection, cost of inspection,
Correct, who does it?
who
Yeah,
inspects.
yep.
So I think it's time to have that conversation, because if we're going down the road of having to perform the inspection, we don't have the staffing or the knowledge to do that, so we're gonna have to hire it or buy it.
Mhm.
So that's a PJ Keating cost
Correct.
to us. So I think we're gonna need to have that discussion with them as well, because we cannot continue the way we have been
Mhm.
with the neighbors, and, you know, they shouldn't have to live like this, so.
If I just go back on the
Sure.
topic of the bond, I think I'd like to have town council look at whatever document is generated, maybe we take that for granted.
We're not going forward without town council.
Yeah, you know, we've got a document here, I'm not, you know, insurance are always very vague and confusing, and I think we wanna make sure we've got what we think we've got.
Well,
in
actually,
regard
to
to
be
this
honest with you,
bond.
in two cases here, we have an insurance advisor and we have town council.
Perfect.
Both are going to look at these
Perfect.
things,
Perfect.
so that we know that we're well covered and, but the first step would be, in my opinion, dealing
Sit
with the
down,
management
yep.
and saying, where are we?
Should we give this to Joe to set everything up?
Yeah.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
We'll get on it, yeah, we'll start getting that conversation, again,
And
so this is.
Joe,
Yep.
I wanna be involved, Brian's gonna be
Excellent.
involved.
Yep, absolutely. You guys have been great in the interaction. So yeah, I'll get in touch with Kevin, that's the Kevin Yukon, he's our go-to guy, and start bringing it all together. And then that, obviously, lead you into how we're gonna handle our 2019 permit. And then to go back to what Brian was saying, the next thing that has to be discussed is really how we're gonna, or how you guys are gonna go about regulating. We've done, from the Board of Health and from the Soil Board, there's been a lot of work here, moving forward to really start looking at the quarry and regulating it in a way that it hasn't necessarily been regulated in the past. We've got a lot more information now from DEP and the way that they interact with the quarry versus what the town has to do. And it really shows that the majority of the work has to be put on the town in order to deal with all the different aspects of what's going on in that quarry. And there is, you saw the matrix of regulations, there is a ton of stuff that yeah, and complicated on many levels. Last year, we looked at hiring Woodard and Curran to go in there, moving forward, to do inspections. We got a cost estimate from them that was in the vicinity of about $20,000 to do 4 inspections, which would be quarterly inspections, and for each day that they inspected, it would be a day to write up the report for the inspection. So from that standpoint, moving forward, money-wise, the next thing would be, it would have to come down to the local Board of Health, the Soil Board, and the Soil Board has the lead right now. Based on our town council, the Soil Board and the bylaws that the town of Acushnet has, is the lead regulating authority in the town for PJ Keating. Fall behind that is the Board of Health, okay, with nuisance and dust, as we went through with the dust mitigation plan. Because our consultant does the inspections, that's one side of it. The other part of it, if there's issues that need to be corrected, the board, the Soil Board, would have to get together and create an order, write an order to correct, a correction order, and follow through with future inspections to make sure that they corrected whatever situation might have been found by the consultant. Whether that means bringing the consultant back in again to check on whatever potential issue came up, and then again write a letter back to the board, or the board's agent will say that the issues have been corrected. I mean, that's all extra. So the $20,000 for what's going on, anytime that we have Woodard and Curran in, is gonna potentially be more money. So there's been a thought process here because of the Soil Board and the Board of Health being so interconnected with this particular type of facility, that if there was a part-time health agent, say, that was potentially hired, it could use the power, the particular part-time health agent could use the power of the health laws, and also be appointed by the Soil Board as their agent, and become and use all the regulations that the bylaws have, or the regulating authority that the bylaws have. This would help to keep somebody constantly in tune with what's going on with PJ Keating, whether it's a dusty day, windy day, a rainy day, whether the water's running down South Main Street and going into the drainage swale, or it's coming out of PJ Keating, whether there's dust on the superstructure, whether there's dust blowing off the piles, whether the water cannons are working right, where the trucks are coming. Now, we know that the asphalt plant's moving to the front, but the quarry, so there might be a little bit less dust because the trucks aren't running all the way to the back to get the asphalt on the south side, but yet at the same time, the quarry itself is moving south. They're going after their resources, after their rocks, they're blasting, they're moving in that direction. So now you have the quarry operations that are going to start creating dust where the asphalt plant was located, creating dust. So there's a lot to take a look at what's going on there in regards to regulating it and staying on top of it, and I think that both the Board of Health and the Soil Board have been working towards that direction to make sure that we have the best I can say is boots on the ground, checking these people's houses out, being in the backyards, seeing what's going on with the dust, watching what's going on, writing the correction orders, and standing behind those correction orders, and doing the re-inspections, and doing the, if necessary, the finding, and then following through with those findings, and court, or whatever else may come from all of that, you know, but it's
So the
just,
initial one is 20 grand for Woodward and Curran,
so,
plus whatever above and beyond.
well, I think, what I wanted to say is that you're looking at it from a money standpoint, about maybe what to charge a fee moving forward to PJ Keating for next year. We might be able to share, if honestly, if you have a part-time health agent, they're gonna be part of the Board of Health. So we could offset that by utilizing that person when they're not, you know, you can't imagine that every single solitary day they're gonna be chasing PJ Keating. It would be looked at, I think, from a part-time standpoint, so you have somebody maybe in the 19-hour range, you know, not something that's, you know, full-time. But if they need to dedicate all that time, that 19 hours a day or 19 hours a week to PJ Keating every week for 5 weeks, that they can. But yet, if they have to come off of it, or, you know, miraculously PJ Keating is doing everything perfectly, and they don't have to interact with them, then, you know, I think that we could honestly keep them busy too. So it's just, that person would be more or less designated to PJ Keating.
Would we need Woodard and Curran under those circumstances?
I think,
Is this instead
no, this is,
or in addition?
We would
No.
need them substantially less,
yes,
but we
Um,
would still need an occasional.
Expert.
Well, they're still gonna come in quarterly.
I don't
No,
think
I
we'd need
think
them
we
quarterly.
would avoid that. So
Yeah.
the thought, we'd had that conversation over time. The conversation would be, Woodard and Curran could be used as a tool, not just as a consultant, but as a tool to teach the agent, that part-time health agent, and myself, what they're gonna look at. We don't necessarily need to have Woodard and Curran doing quarterly inspections. But we go there a couple of times, we do a couple of inspections, because of course, a lot of it's paperwork, a lot of it's right there in front of us. There's some of that stuff that we may not even be able to do legally, because you have to be certified in open pits and mines to be in there. So there's certain stuff that we may not be able to do, like go walk around the quarry unless we're with somebody. That has to be discussed with them. But the paperwork, the you know, the complaints, which is now going through that hotline, the amount of regulatory paperwork, are they submitting the information to EPA, to DEP that they have to on a regular basis? Those are the kind of things we're gonna be looking at, plus the obvious stuff, which is, again, dust, odor, noise. And, you know, we have Mr. Medeiros that's here. He goes in and out of the quarries, so he's able to see it because of his profession. He sees that stuff, so that stuff can be relayed to us, you know, about what's going on. The point of it is we just try to make this big wrapped up package that we really start to follow through with, making sure that they're, as you put it before, responsible neighbors. And I don't,
So Joe, 19 hours a week. For,
yeah.
let's just start the conversation there. For a part-time health agent, primarily dedicated to the oversight of quarry operations.
Yep.
What does a part-time health agent cost?
I think that we have to work that out.
We'd have to write a job description, then we'd use the wage classification system to come up with a grade, and then we'd know exactly what we were per hour. So I think the next step to do is, you and I need to create a job description for this person.
Yep.
That would follow both disciplines, quarry and Board of Health.
Yep.
Because I hope, could be wrong, that we don't need them for 19 hours a week, 206, 52 weeks a year, just to pay attention to PJ.
Right.
That we could get additional value from that person
Sure.
outside of just the quarry.
And that
Yes,
would
his
be my
specialty
expectation.
would be
Yeah.
Soil board,
And
meaning
primary
that, you know,
responsibility.
we have, what, 2 regulated pits at the moment in town, so he could do both.
Well, I think Catino's is gonna be done because they're gonna put a solar farm there now.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
That just came in last week, so.
It's a lot of rock to move over there.
So
At Catino's?
Yeah.
in 2018, what was our charge to Keating for a fee?
55.
It will be 55. It was, previous
100,
year
not
was
1,000.
5,000.
100.
But if we go this
5,500.
direction and based
How
it.
long have we charged them 5,500?
Just the last 3 or 4
1 year.
years. 1 year, okay.
Yeah, so 5,500, so 2017 was $5,000. Prior to that, I think it was 500,
1,500.
1,500, and prior to that, it might have even been less.
200.
It was less. So, I mean, that was the call from the board, that, you know, it's ridiculous, we're involved in this an awful lot, it takes up a lot of our time. You know, from a Board of Health standpoint, we're the ones that get the call, because there's no soil board office, so we're always the one that's getting the phone call. And yeah, I mean, it can take up a chunk of our time, and if I physically go out there every single solitary time that I get a call, and, you know, right now, my reaction is to call the plant manager over there, the quarry operation manager, and have a conversation with him and say, listen, we're getting a complaint on the south side, this is the house, at this point, we all know the neighbors pretty well. You gotta address this immediately, meet me out there or go over there, and he's been really good about that, really good, so that they can stop. I mean, he sent me an email the other day, I don't know if you got that, but they shut the plant down. They're really starting to try, because of the wind out of the northeast, so they're trying to start to do things like that. But they still have a lot of, we still get complaints, we still go over there, we still get notes written on the car windshields, you know, it's still consistently, especially from a noise, a dust problem. I know Chief Gallagher, along with myself, are starting to get more and more phone calls from blasting operations. They're getting louder, there's concerns that,
Well,
you
they're
know,
moving, aren't they? They're moving to the backside where that hot top place used to be, yeah?
The way they're into a corner, it just creates the,
Well, it must be a new vein too, if
And it
that's,
depends on the level that they're on
yeah.
as well.
so I mean, all these things, this is what I would expect would be, you know, it would be helping out Chief Gallagher too. I mean, dealing with that noise, that those issues that, you know, aren't dove into right now. I mean, we know that we deal with it, we try to correct it, we try to stay on top of it. But this is what, I guess, again, coming into this is what we've been talking about for the past year, is moving in this direction and regulating in a much more consistent
Methodical.
way, yeah.
Well, let me put to so basically what we have to do is find a part-time agent. That has to be between you two gentlemen, you're gonna sit down and do
take
that?
a job description needs to be, well, first of all, we're creating a position, so we need to go through Board of Selectmen, Finance Committee,
Yep.
Board of Health.
Okay, do we have to make
sure
a motion on
everybody
that?
agrees, to do that, then we need a job description and classification, we need to create a budget.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, I think we have a funding source, but this all needs to be vetted to go into effect in the next budget year. So, the motion should be to
Create this pos-
investigate,
Okay,
or create, I don't know, which do you think? To create's gonna need approval of at least three boards before it goes to town meeting. It's gonna need the soil board, it's gonna need the Board of Health, it's gonna need the Board of Selectmen, 4 boards, Finance Committee, before we can create this position. So it wouldn't go into effect until the first of the next fiscal year. So why don't we, only at this moment, create a motion to create the job description and the classification of the position, and then at the next soil board meeting, decide after we've had the meeting with PJ, how much regulation we're gonna need, how much boots on the ground we're gonna need.
good.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? With that, at least we can keep moving forward with that. Instead of doing yearly now, we'll be doing monthly.
Well, we'll be doing, if, in the event that we can get if this can work out with a part-time agent of this type of magnitude, this would be daily. It wouldn't be quarterly, it would be
Yeah.
daily. I mean, you know, they would come in, whatever their hours were, you know, that's what they would do. If there was complaints, if there was issues, that would all get funneled into that
Now,
particular
what is the
person.
criteria that this person needs for this position? Does he have to know about mining and stuff? I mean, how are you gonna get a part-time guy with those credentials
I
to
don't,
come?
I think you've read somebody that's reasonably knowledge of Board of Health regulations, because
Yeah.
that's where the genesis of the soil board's authority comes from. And then we'll teach them
yeah,
the mine stuff.
which is,
There are classes for that, and the Bureau of Mines will help us.
Great,
again, the bottom line behind what's going in there, it's a lot of paper. They push a lot of paper, and they're supposed to push that paper to the right offices. All right, so that's part of the inspection, to make sure that they're doing that. If we come across, the way that I would see that, if we come across an issue, let's say with their paperwork, as we're going through their, did you send this to DEP? Did you send this to EPA? Just to keep that simple. If they haven't done that, then you look into the reason why they haven't potentially done that. Then we can call our partners, which would be DEP, and they would have to respond to us. If we get into an issue where there's a violation, especially if we see that there's a violation in something that DEP has control over, the state has control over, we can reach out to them. Now, they don't do inspections like we wish that they would. They will do it every 3 or 4 years, but if we find violations, or they refuse, if we write an enforcement order and they don't correct it, or they don't correct it properly, we can reach out to DEP, and DEP will help fix the
Enforce.
problem and enforce the problem. But again, it's just all the extra effort that goes along with that. You know, you write the, you write
It's
the correction,
coordination.
you write the correction order, they don't correct.
well, we have to get this person here, that's the next step.
I think
We have
that
to get the
overall,
job, no matter how much we talk about it here, that is the next step that we have to do. Cause you can't go in every single day, or Bob can't go in.
yeah, it takes, I mean, we'll do what we have to do, don't
Yep.
get me wrong, but I mean, realistically, if we want to do this the right way, I mean, I think that the board, and meaning the soil board, needs their own agent, much like, you know, in some sort of capacity, much like, you know, the selectmen have their agent, and the Board of Health has their agent, the Conservation Commission has their agent, because they're the boots on the ground all day doing all the regulate. And,
I'll go here, it's not been said, I think it's being inferred. I mean, we need to figure out what this is going to cost us.
sure, yep,
And based on
absolutely.
what we think this is going to cost us, the
That's the
soil,
permit cost.
the permit's gonna be more than $5,500
Yeah.
for fiscal 2019 and going forward, because this position's being created for principally one purpose.
Yeah.
And that cost is gonna get passed on, it's gotta be passed on.
Why can't
Right.
we just make PJ Keating pay for it all?
We can,
That's, I mean,
Or directly?
absolutely,
well,
Is the-
not directly, but
Yeah.
indirectly,
That-
I
yeah.
just say
Just
one
through the
thing.
permit fee.
If
With
you're
the
gonna,
permit fee.
if
if
that's
you're
what you
going,
want. Or just have, this guy is gonna be the person who will be there and you're gonna pay for it.
good.
I just say this to say it, so it's out there. If they're the agent, strictly the agent for the soil board, then that makes sense.
Right.
If they're gonna be part Board of Health and part soil board agent, then maybe that doesn't make sense. So, I mean, there might be 2/3, 1/3.
Mhm.
You know, again, if we're gonna have this conversation with the selectmen and the finance committee and the Board of Health, I mean, we have to be realistic.
Yeah, well, I think what we do is we figure out what this person costs, then we figure out how their hours are
How
gonna be
we pay for
allocated,
it.
and then if, you know, to the
Part of
extent
that
they're
process.
doing other work for the Board of Health, we can't pass that on to PJ Keating.
Right.
It's the job description that's all
Mhm.
important.
Yeah.
And the job description determines how much we're willing to say is the PJ Keating part of the job, and how much is for the assistant health inspector,
Yes.
so.
I mean, I can use help, I don't need help, you know, I mean, I'll use help, and I shouldn't say it that way. I could definitely use the help, but I, you know, to.
We wouldn't do this but for the PJ Keating situation.
Correct.
Exactly. That's
But on the other side of the coin, you're not doing anything between midnight and 8, so.
I could come hang out at PJ Keating, right? All summer long.
All right.
I got a couple of other notes here. I'm sorry, you
I'm done, yep, absolutely.
All right, is there a decommissioning plan? At some point, in this process, we had talked about that.
Well,
Has that been updated?
The plan
Or
only
is that
seems
part
to
of the
be,
bond?
that's the bond, but there's no plan.
There should be a plan.
There should be a plan. And
When we
that-
walk away from this facility, these are the things we
Well, of course,
promised to do.
One hopes that the decommissioning plan is their job, not ours.
Yes, it's their job, absolutely.
Okay, so I
Yeah,
think,
but if they up and leave, it's not their job, then the bond.
But it's
is
covered by the
taken.
bond.
on the other side of the
Correct.
coin, if they could write the decommissioning plan as part of the requirement of their soil board permit, so that when they, if in the event they walk away, at least we have a plan.
And that plan could be referenced in the bond. The bond-
Correct.
And the bond says there's a
Well, the
decommissioning
bond-
plan dated whatever, and this bond is ensuring that that happens.
The cost of the bond's gotta be related to the plan.
Right.
So I don't know how we came up with, I mean, you'd have to go back into the records and look and see how they came up with $786,000. That's a strange number. So was
Yes, I know.
that tied to a plan?
Must have been, yeah. must have
And
been
then the
something.
plan had a price. What's the plan?
There's always been, you know,
That was
general
back in
discussion
2000.
It was a long
Yeah.
time ago.
about
Yeah.
that there was always a plan with Tilcon, and I don't know if it was written or discussed, and I know that there's maybe some older records if I really dig deep, but realistically, everything about the place has changed.
It's
since
time to
then, so-
formalize that, I think.
And
And
that
At
would
the
be
very minimum.
consistent with what the town requires the solar farms
Absolutely,
to
Correct.
maintain as well. with
We do,
decommissioning
okay.
plan.
Okay.
And we have a bond on each one of them.
that's
Okay.
right. With a plan.
Yep.
And just one more, I had, we talked at one point about witnessing the plant start up there, when this is coming closer to the road, has that happened?
No.
They were gonna invite us to, or were we
They-
supposed to
there-
follow
We have an
up?
open invitation. We need to follow up.
Okay, so I just think that's something we should, if this thing's gonna be right up on the road, what does it sound like when they turn it on at whatever?
Midnight.
Yeah, well, yeah, whenever it
It all
goes, what does
depends
that,
on
what does
what-
that sound like?
Yeah, it depends which way the wind's.
So they offered, I think we should follow up, I think we need
So
to.
too.
um,
Let's wait for a
And,
nice cold day.
should we be looking at our soil board bylaw review, should we crack that document and start? I mean, that's probably 20 years old as well. Is it time to look
Or
at that
more.
bylaw or more? I
Yeah.
think, Chief, you suggested a blasting bylaw at some point. Should we be looking at that also? Incorporating that into
Well, we
town
can,
bylaws?
we can do the blasting through regulation,
Which we did.
and which we have done, so we're okay.
I thought the chief had said we should
No,
have something
we're actually
local.
better off doing it by regulation
Okay.
than by
Okay,
bylaw.
fine, that's fine.
And as far as the soil board is concerned, same thing, as long as our enabling legislation, that which creates us, is sufficient, then the regulations the soil board adopts are more flexible, because we don't need a town meeting vote to change the regulation.
So we're comfortable with what our
As long
bylaws
as, we
say?
need to look at our bylaws to
Yeah.
make sure that the enabling legislation that empowers us to act is liberal enough to act. But you don't wanna put the regulations in as a bylaw, because in order to change a regulation, you need a town meeting vote.
Hmm.
In order to change a regulation, if it's the board, the soil board's authority,
Hmm.
it's a vote of the soil board.
Okay, but I guess my point is, we've got a bylaw that exists, that has words in it, that,
Say, this is the soil board,
That's-
this is the composure
Yeah,
of the
there's a
soil
lot-
board,
there's a
and
lot
this is your
there.
authority.
there's a
Yes,
lot there.
correct.
And just think maybe we should look at what's there
Fair
and make sure that's all still appropriate. And maybe there are things we should, to your point.
Do
make-
by regulation.
Make go away, rather
Yeah.
than, there are things we're saying specifically now. Maybe we should look at those things and say, let's strike this paragraph entirely, because it's tying our hands.
That's fine. Yep, we put that in
And
notice.
I don't know what it takes to get a bylaw, but I think
Well, I
we've
think
got,
most of
we've got a
that
committee.
bylaw is good. I mean, when we had 15 pits, it was a different story.
Yeah.
Now we're down to one.
Well, the next question I have
Yeah.
for you, if we're down to one, truly, do we see
Do
the
we have to
soil
change-
board
right.
to just a subsection of the Board of Health?
Mhm.
So in other words, does the soil board, if we're regulating one entity, need to exist? Or do we roll it back into the authority of the Board of Health or into the Board of Selectmen?
Mhm.
If I may. I actually, because of the dust mitigation world that the Board of Health was in, we did have this conversation, and I'm sure I can come up with the ultimate outcome. Not about all the specific regulations, Roger, like you were talking about, but overall, where we stand with the public health laws as the Board of Health versus where we stand with the bylaws as the soil board. And that was completely gone through by our town council and determined to be in good working order and that the soil board had the upper hand in authority over the Board of Health, based on the bylaw. And I have that written from them. Now, the specifics into the regulations, the Board of Health does a lot of regulations, what you can and cannot do based off that, but the soil board actually has quite a bit of authority, as I see it. So much so that it kicked the Board of Health, and that's unusual. I mean, from the standpoint of the regulatory authority that a Board of Health generally has, it really kind of kicked them to the side and said that
Soil board
those
has
were
primacy.
very well written and gives you a lot of power to regulate. So you're the lead authority, you're the lead regulating authority in this town over PJ Keating.
Okay.
And the Board of Health takes a fallback position. I mean, of course, we still have what we have, but that's the way the town council read it, that's the way it was written to me, and that's the way we move forward based on that. You know, going back to dust mitigation, so. I mean, it was a good job in the town of Acushnet from that standpoint, even though it was probably more so intended to be a gravel operation rather than a quarry operation, it fits into it quite well.
What's your next question?
I'm done. That's all I got.
Chief, you got anything?
I think we gotta meet right after the first of the year. When do you think that we can meet with PJ? Couple weeks?
Yeah, I've already submitted this back in October. So, Kevin, you can has the conditions of approval. I certainly think that we talked about this, so why he wouldn't want to move forward, other than that, I think that we meet right after the
Well, they
first.
did file for their building permit.
Yep.
And we did have to get it.
Yep.
So they're on the road.
Yep.
They've also contacted me regarding the fire protection permit, and I've asked to see a copy of the plan
Yep.
prior to commenting on fire protection needs. So
Sure.
I'm waiting to hear from their consultant on that.
We also have the flammable storage licenses, which we ran through town council to make sure we had basis for it. And it's a change because they're moving the storage facility, if you wanna call it that.
Yep.
That would require, in my opinion, and maybe the people back me up, it's a change in the conditions of the permit, therefore it requires a public hearing before the Board of Selectmen.
Well,
Do you agree with me on that?
I do.
Okay. So, I mean, nothing's gonna happen without the world knowing.
Yeah.
When you look at the standard, it's not only a change of location, it's a change of configuration. So it meets the standard in two ways. So it needs to go through
Super.
a formal process of Board of Selectmen review, which includes a public hearing.
Yep, absolutely. I will, let the Council on Aging know.
Maybe the school.
I don't know how big that would be, actually.
I do.
Flammable storage is a different story than odor and noise. Okay, so the only thing that would drive people there is it's about PJ,
Mm-hmm.
so.
What do they have as far as flammable storage, diesel and gas? or-
Diesel, gas, and asphalt.
Asphalt,
That's the
yeah.
big one.
Yep.
Is that a change from what they've done in the past?
They have permits for asphalt, diesel,
Yep.
gasoline. But because they're changing the location of the plant
Okay,
and they're redesigning it,
okay. All right.
that
So
triggers.
that triggers a hearing.
The hearing.
That's a new law, actually, that's changed, because before it was just renew,
Just pass
you
it
don't
on.
pass it on. Now, any change to the physical facility requires a public hearing.
Okay.
I've got a shameless plug about site plan review. Get that rocking.
Well, that
and
also
rolling.
needs to be in the
We
bylaws.
need the planning board to accept that
We
idea.
need to focus on that, that's just.
I know somebody in the planning board, he might be open to that.
Awesome.
I'll have to check. Site plan review. Well,
Actually, I don't want site plan review, I want site plan approval,
Yeah.
which is the highest step you can do. You don't just review it, you have to approve it. And that, I think, would be, you always run into this libertarian thing, I don't want you to tell me what I can do with my property, but
Mhm.
now we wanna tell you what you can do with your property because of the PJ Keating issue.
Mhm.
And zoning, I mean, just zoning all in all. But,
Good, thank you.
sorry.
What do we got else to cover?
What else we got to go?
We have minutes?
Yep, let's
Make
see.
a motion to adopt the minutes as presented.
Is there a second? Approval of minutes, June 27th, 2018, and July 18th, 2018.
Second.
Second, is there a vote made second, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous? That's this one here.
Oh, right.
Want me to sign it or you wanna wait? We all have to sign it, right?
Yeah, that's cool.
Those are the leftover invoices. They've
You have to
been very
approve the
patient.
Woodard and Curran invoice?
Mm.
Make a
Yep.
motion to approve the invoice submitted by Woodard and Curran in the amount of?
There's two.
1,200 and
It's the freight.
29.55 total, no, 69.50 and 1,200.
Okay. Got those numbers?
There a motion, there's a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, gentlemen, you sign these, let me just pass them on. And the minutes, we approved those already. You wanna make a meeting now, or you wanna call us when you have all that stuff done?
I need to call you when we got it done.
Got
A
it?
lot of it hinges on the availability of DJ.
Mhm.
And of course, the holiday thing messes up a little bit.
That's okay, Woodland Curran, we got that, part-time agent, we did that, inspector, matters, bond review.
What does that one do?
This one, I was just looking at it.
Can't figure it out.
Gravel,
I haven't been able to.
What is it there for?
No, that one's,
Western Surety Company,
Oh,
this
the
is for
last one,
Catino.
that was just to talk about it. I mean, that's the bond for, Catino.
Yeah, but Pico Stone Imports and Supply are taking that one over, right?
Yep, they're the ones
Got
that
it.
renew the
Okay.
license.
Okay, do we have to, do I have to read this into Lulu?
No, I mean, I just, they've actually got their permit issued to them. They're obviously the only other quarry or gravel operation around, and for the most part, that's just not even, it's mostly storage of stone. So, just to talk about the bonds, not only just about DJ Keating, but the other one.
I think that
And
one's
that's
pretty
adequate.
That's adequate.
I went over there, I did an inspection, I mean, it's just, they're not doing anything besides using it as a storage facility for stone.
You're talking about the Catino?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this bond, we're really gonna look at.
That one at least makes sense. This one,
Yep.
that one, that looks like a
What's
power of attorney
I saw
that's
that.
there, that doesn't refer to, the bond that we have. The bond that we have is from 2001, it's never been updated. It's through Tilcon Capaldi.
Yeah, I'm looking, it says, shall endeavors, whereas the principal endeavors to adhere to the earth removal bond requirement promulgated by the town of Acushnet.
So there's a,
We,
there's a.
we
there's a-
told you we'd give you a bond, here's a bond, it doesn't tell us what the bond covers.
There
Maybe it
is
does something.
another portion of this, just since we're talking about it, that has to do with some sort of a memorandum of agreement.
And it's gonna be something else.
Which we don't have.
We do, we have that around somewhere that was between Tilcon and the town of Acushnet, saying that they felt it's essentially based on, they didn't necessarily agree that they needed to do this, but they would.
The original one, is back in 2000, is that the one you're
Yeah,
talking about?
yeah, this is.
It's on a letter dated November 13th, that doesn't say anything.
So,
Maybe it backs the permit, it's possible it's backing documents that
So it
aren't.
does
that
refer
aren't
to this
included.
memo. Do I have this memorandum of understanding for 2000?
I have it here, I'm.
Oh, this thing, right here?
yes.
Yeah, it's in there, about.
memorandum of understanding.
differ in
August
interpretation of
7, 21.
applicability. By the way, the grandfather went away when we rezoned.
Yep.
So that's no longer an admissible defense.
But that was back in 2001.
Yep.
Correct?
Yeah. So it doesn't really have a decommissioning plan.
It was just a bond.
Yeah. It basically, it says we're gonna use a chain link fence along the north and south perimeters of the quarry, berms, high walls, and dense vegetation. Tilcon will continue to maintain the permanent drainage system already in place. We have looked at that. And erosion control, Tilcon will use its best available technology control to prevent erosion. That's sort of like, so we'll do our best. Great, thanks.
But this is still with Tilcon.
Right,
This is not with PJ.
well, successor and title, successor and, you know, I have a successor and title memo in here.
Okay.
So that they are bound by this.
Okay.
But my question would come back to the same old, do they even know they're bound by this? But I'm not sure this binds you to much. There's very general requirements here.
Yeah, it's pretty vague.
Yeah, but that was, what, almost 18 years ago,
Yeah.
19 years ago, right?
Yeah.
We have, Tilcon will pay the town treasurer annually in the amount of $150 for this.
That was the original one.
Okay, we have our work cut out for us.
Anything else? Anybody, anything else to say? Do, here?
Motion to adjourn.
Wait a
Second.
second. All in favor at 7:58. 6:59. Sorry. What, they didn't change the clocks back yet?